I was quietly working late when my boss slammed his hand on my desk and barked, "You're not leaving until you fix the report you messed up, unless you want to explain to corporate why you can't follow basic instructions." I knew I didn't touch that file, but he smirked and added, "You're always so eager to prove yourself, now's your chance." So I did exactly what he said. And CC'd the entire board with the error he made, timestamped and all. Now he's scrambling to explain why I have security footage from his office printer. Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be one of those people writing one of these long, messed up revenge stories, but here I am. I needed to get this off my chest. I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma about a year ago after transferring from our smaller office in Stillwater. Same company, just a bigger branch with more clients and more chances to grow. I'd been putting in long hours, staying late, covering for people, doing everything to make a good impression. I figured if I worked hard enough, someone would notice. Someone did, but not in the way I expected. My boss, Mike Radley, was one of those guys who always acted like he was better than everyone. Late 40s, slicked back hair, loud voice, always busy but never actually doing anything. He liked to intimidate people. He'd make jokes that didn't land and treated the office like his little kingdom. Most people kept their heads down around him. I didn't talk back. I didn't make waves. I just worked. It was a Wednesday. We'd had a busy week with end-of-quarter reports coming in. I was working on a client analysis that had nothing to do with invoicing. Everyone else had gone home by 6 p.m. I stayed behind. That wasn't unusual for me. Around 8:30 p.m., the quiet in the office broke like a gunshot. I heard these loud, angry steps coming toward me. Then, out of nowhere, Mike slammed his hand on my desk. I jumped back in my chair. "You're not leaving tonight," he said, loud and angry, "until you fix the mess you made." He shoved a piece of paper in front of me. It was a printed invoice report for one of our biggest clients, Waterway Transportation. He pointed to the numbers. "You double-billed them for January and left off February entirely. If this gets sent to corporate, it's going to fall on you." I blinked at the paper, completely confused. I didn't touch that report. I wasn't even assigned to that client. I opened the shared folder, pulled up the metadata. Sure enough, last modified at 6:17 p.m. Under his account. "Mike," I said, keeping my voice steady, "this isn't my report. It shows your login." He leaned in, smirking. "You're always so eager to impress, aren't you? Now's your chance. Fix it. Or you can explain yourself to corporate in the morning." Then he just walked away like that was the end of it. That's when something flipped inside me. It wasn't just the unfairness. It was the way he acted, so sure, like he could frame me and nothing would happen to him. Like he'd done it before. And truth is, he had. Back in December, a guy named Trey got let go. Mike blamed him for a failed route submission, said Trey was careless and cost us a contract. A few weeks later, I found out from someone in logistics that Mike had been the one who misfiled the route. Nobody said anything. Trey was just gone. That always stuck with me. So this time? I didn't just sit there. I stayed. I combed through every bit of data I could find. Here's what I gathered between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. The invoice file had his username on the last save. The print log showed the document was printed at 6:22 p.m. from his workstation. The security Dropbox we shared for office incidents had hallway footage. I grabbed the clip from the camera outside his office. It showed him walking in at 6:15 p.m. with papers in his hand. No trace of that file touching my account. Not through email. Not through the shared drive. Nothing. Then I put it all into a folder I named billing_report_discrepancy_proof. I wrote the email next. I kept it short, simple, polite. I attached everything, screenshots, footage, logs. Subject line. Discrepancy in Waterway invoice, requesting guidance I didn't accuse. I just stated facts and asked for clarification. And I CC'd the entire corporate board, HR, the CIO, and our internal audit supervisor. I hit send at 1:15 a.m. When I got in the next morning, everything felt off. People were whispering. Mike wasn't at his desk. He didn't come in until almost 10:30. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept. He didn't make eye contact. Just went straight to his office and shut the door. At 11:03, I got an email from HR asking me to come to a meeting at noon. At 12 o'clock sharp, I walked into a small conference room. Caroline from HR and Luis, our CIO, were already sitting there. They didn't look angry. Just serious. Caroline started. Mike says you doctored the evidence. He says you're trying to undermine him. I almost laughed. You think I faked printer logs and hallway footage? Luis held up a hand. We already looked into that. Your timestamps, log records, and the footage. All of it checks out. I just nodded. I didn't need to say anything else. Then Caroline told me something I wasn't expecting. This isn't the first time someone has raised concerns about Mike. You're just the first to bring hard proof. The next week was chaos. Mike was put on immediate leave. Internal audit found multiple reports linked to him with similar issues, missing numbers, changes that weren't logged, sloppy mistakes covered up by throwing someone else under the bus. Once word got out he was suspended, 2 ex-employees emailed HR with their own stories. Turns out, I wasn't the only one he tried to mess with. But I was the one who documented everything. That Monday, I was called into another meeting. This time, it was just HR. They offered me a promotion. Audit and reporting lead. They said they admired how I handled everything. I turned it down. I told them I appreciated it, but I didn't want to stay in a place where someone like Mike was allowed to run things for as long as he did. Before I left, I printed out one last document. It was the full timeline I put together, with every log, every screenshot, every step I took to clear my name. I made copies and dropped one into every department mailbox with a sticky note on top that said, "Always back yourself up." I walked out that afternoon with my head high and my dignity intact. But this story doesn't end there. It got messy, eh? More people got pulled in. And one person I trusted turned out to be playing both sides. I'll keep writing if you want to hear what happened next. Because this revenge? It wasn't over. Not even close. So, I thought it was over. I really did. After Mike got put on leave and I walked out of that building with my timeline packets in every mailbox, I figured the storm had passed. I told myself I'd move on. But the thing about exposing a snake? Sometimes you don't realize how many other snakes were hiding under the same rock. 3 days after I left, I got a text from Vanessa. She worked in client relations, smart, sharp, always seemed like she had your back. She was the only person in the office who checked in on me regularly. We used to grab lunch once a week, sometimes vent about work, sometimes just sit in the break room eating leftovers and talking about our lives. I trusted her. Her text said, "Hey. Just a heads up. Heard your name come up in the Thursday strategy call. They said you overreacted and tried to make Mike look bad. Be careful who you trust." That hit me weird. She was the one who told me back in January that Mike had it out for Trey. She even encouraged me to save copies of my work, just in case. I called her. She didn't pick up. I texted back, "What do you mean they? Who said that?" No reply. Hours passed. Still nothing. Later that night, I got an alert from Dropbox. Someone tried to access the security footage folder I'd pulled the hallway video from. The access was denied because I'd removed myself from the company account, but it showed the name, Vanessa M_86. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Vanessa had nothing to do with billing. Why was she snooping around that folder now? The next morning, I called Marcus, one of the IT guys I trusted. Quiet guy. Did his job, didn't talk much. But we'd worked on a few back-end projects together, and I helped him fix a broken script once. I knew he didn't like Mike either. I asked him straight up, "Can you check who's been accessing the old invoice folders? The ones tied to Mike?" He paused for a second. "You didn't hear this from me," he said. "But Vanessa pulled copies of the original invoice files last week. Then she forwarded them to a personal email. I flagged it, but she said it was part of the internal review." I thanked him and hung up. My heart was racing. Why would she need to send them to herself? I started thinking back. Vanessa was always close to Mike in meetings. She once told me she thought he was a jerk, but I remembered now, she never said it in front of anyone else. Just to me. Just enough to make me feel like she was on my side. The next day, another shoe dropped. I got a call from Caroline in HR. "Hey, just a courtesy call. We've had some inquiries about your conduct. Apparently, someone's claiming you accessed security footage without permission." "What?" I said. "The Dropbox is shared. I used it for a facilities ticket in February. There was no password. No firewall." Caroline hesitated. "That's not what's being said now." I knew then, Vanessa was trying to cover her own tracks. She must have been involved with Mike. Maybe not in the report stuff directly, but she knew. Maybe even helped. Maybe she'd been leaking info the whole time. Maybe Mike wasn't working alone. That night, I went through every text, every Slack message, every email I ever had with her. I found something small, but telling. 2 days before Mike tried to frame me, Vanessa had messaged me, "Hey, are you working on anything with Waterway? Heard they're about to expand." At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now, it clicked. She was checking. Making sure I wasn't touching those invoices. Making sure the trap was clean. I started putting things together. If she helped set me up, and now she was claiming I misused internal files, that meant this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. So I decided to go deeper. I reached out to a friend of mine, Dev, from the Stillwater office. He was in compliance now. I asked if he could pull regional file access logs, quietly. I told him I just wanted to see something. He owed me a favor from back when I helped him with a logistics disaster. What he found made everything worse. Vanessa had accessed client folders on 3 separate occasions, each linked to reports where someone else was later blamed for errors. One of those people? Trey. This wasn't a one-time cover-up. This was a pattern. And the part that made my skin crawl? Some of those files were edited and sent to Mike's desktop. That's when I realized, Mike wasn't just sloppy. He had help. Vanessa was feeding him just enough to let others take the fall. And when they were gone, she moved on like nothing happened. So now, it wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about exposing both of them. Because if Vanessa wanted to play this smart, she should have erased her tracks better. Instead, she left a trail. And I was already following it. At this point, I wasn't trying to get even anymore. I was trying to pull the whole rotten structure down before it ate someone else alive. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Dev from Stillwater kept digging. He was careful about it, nothing that would raise alarms. But over the next few days, he sent me logs, file timestamps, metadata from invoice PDFs that had been copied and overwritten, and even Slack exports that showed Vanessa messaging Mike on her personal phone during work hours. It didn't say much, just times and names, but it lined up. I started building a second folder. This one I titled chain_link_proof. While I was putting that together, I got an unexpected message from someone I hadn't talked to in months, Trey. He'd moved to Kansas City after getting fired, working part-time delivering medical supplies. He sounded hesitant, but curious. I heard what happened to Mike, he said. Words getting around. I told him what I'd found. I didn't hold anything back. I asked him if he remembered anything odd, anything Vanessa or Mike had done right before he was fired. He went quiet. Then he said, Vanessa told me to double-check Route 4A a day before it failed. Said she wasn't sure the file was uploaded right. I checked it. Everything was fine. But the final version? The one that got submitted? It wasn't mine. I asked if he had proof. Only thing I kept was a screenshot from the system. It shows my file uploaded at 10:08 a.m. The version that was sent had a timestamp of 11:33 a.m. Different file name. He sent me the screenshot. Guess whose login showed on the 11:33 a.m. version? Vanessa. This wasn't sloppy office politics. This was organized. She was setting people up and feeding Mike the pieces. He probably thought he was in control, but I was starting to think Vanessa was the one holding the knife. And I wasn't the only one digging anymore. Caroline from HR called me again. This time, her voice was different. I need to ask you something, she said quietly. Have you spoken with anyone from the Stillwater office about Mike or Vanessa? I told her I had. Then she said, Vanessa requested your Dropbox logs from IT. She's trying to make a case that you stole confidential internal property and shared it with people outside the company. My stomach dropped. She's saying you were plotting to discredit her and Mike for personal gain, Caroline continued. If this escalates, it could go legal. Legal. This was turning into something bigger than office drama. But what Vanessa didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I wasn't the only one keeping records. Remember Marcus, the quiet IT guy? He'd been saving server logs for months. Not because of me. Because he never trusted Mike. He didn't trust Vanessa either. And after I told him what was happening, he checked something else. The office printers had audit logs too. Not just timestamps. But user IDs, IP addresses, and file hashes. One of the hashes for the waterway invoice that Mike blamed me for? It matched a file created on Vanessa's computer the day before. That's right. She made the file. He printed it. They blamed me. But the printer logs had it all. Marcus emailed me the print audit with the hash chain. That's when it all locked into place. I finally understood what happened. Vanessa prepped the fake report. Sent it to Mike through a shared drive folder titled Invoice Review. Mike printed it under his name. He brought it to me, pretending it was my mistake. They thought if I panicked or fixed it quietly, it would disappear. They didn't expect me to fight back. But now I had everything. And I was done playing defense. I called Caroline. I'm ready to give a formal statement. But this time I want to do it in person. With audit present. And legal. She agreed. The meeting was set for Tuesday morning. But Monday night, something strange happened. Dev called me, late. His voice was tense. You need to hear this, he said. I just got an internal email forwarded to me by accident. It was meant for Vanessa. What is it? It's from a law firm. They're preparing to serve you with a cease and desist for defamation and unauthorized access of corporate assets. Her name's on the letterhead as the complainant. That's when it hit me. Vanessa wasn't just trying to protect herself anymore. She was trying to erase me. Not just from the company. From the industry. And if she wanted a war? She just picked the wrong person to start one with. Because what she didn't know. I had a full forensic trail. And I wasn't going to HR anymore. I was going to the board. And the state. Tuesday morning came fast. I barely slept the night before. My mind kept running through every file, every message, every log. I printed 2 copies of the evidence binder. It was thick, over 120 pages. One for HR. One for corporate legal. I labeled it, Internal Manipulation and Fraud Evidence Package. When I walked into the conference room, it was already full. Caroline from HR sat stiff in her chair. Luis from IT. A lawyer I didn't recognize. Another suited man, corporate legal counsel. And then Vanessa. Calm, cold, confident. She wore a gray blazer, hair perfect. She gave me a small smile, like she already knew she won. She had a thin manila folder in front of her. Maybe 20 pages, tops. I placed both binders on the table. No smile. No small talk. Caroline cleared her throat. Thanks for coming in, everyone. We're here to discuss concerns raised regarding recent file handling irregularities and related allegations. Vanessa jumped in fast. I'd like to start, she said, flipping her folder open. I have reason to believe the former employee across from me accessed private systems and shared sensitive material with outside personnel in a malicious attempt to discredit myself and Mr. Radley. I have a statement prepared and will be pursuing legal remedies. She slid a paper across the table. The lawyer next to her nodded but didn't speak. Caroline looked at me. I opened my binder. Slowly. Calm. I'd like to walk you through the chain of evidence proving who actually created and manipulated the invoice in question. And how this has been part of an ongoing pattern tied to both Vanessa and Mike Radley, who, by the way, is conveniently not here today. Luis leaned forward. Go ahead. I started at the beginning. Printer logs. Metadata. Access times. File hashes. Screenshots from Dropbox. Footage timestamps. Emails. Slack messages. Print queue history. The file dev recovered from Stillwater. The modified route that got Trey fired. Vanessa's login on that file. Every single point lined up. Every single name attached. Her name. At first, Vanessa stayed quiet. But when I brought out the printer audit with her file hash on the invoice document, her eyes shifted. She started tapping her pen. Then Luis dropped the real bomb. We ran our own internal investigation over the weekend, he said. IT confirmed everything. Your story checks out. Vanessa's logins, transfers, edits. Everything matches. We also found VPN traces that show file access from her personal IP. Her face strained. Caroline turned to Vanessa. Do you want to respond? Vanessa went pale. Then she tried. It was Mike. He told me what to do. He said it was to fix reports that were behind. I didn't know he'd print them like that, but she wasn't done digging her own hole. Besides, she said, her voice cracking, half those files weren't even submitted. They were just drafts. I looked around the room. There's no such thing as a harmless draft when you're getting people fired over it. Then the lawyer finally spoke. We'll need to pause this meeting. Ms. McLean, he nodded at Vanessa, you'll be placed on leave while we proceed with formal review and potential termination. She stood up fast. You're making a mistake, she said. You don't know the whole story, he was the one pulling the strings. No, I said. You were. You built the files. You knew what you were doing. And you got sloppy. Vanessa stormed out. Now here's where it gets wild. A week later, corporate board launched a full audit. They found 3 former employees wrongly terminated after Vanessa and Mike falsified reports over $280,000 in billing errors traced back to manipulated file security footage from last year showing Vanessa sneaking into the printer room with unsigned reports during off-hours. Mike? He didn't just get fired. He got sued. Corporate turned over everything to the state. Fraud. Misconduct. They both lost everything. But that's not even the end. 2 months after the dust settled, I got a call from the new CFO. She'd reviewed the evidence package I gave HR, said it was the most complete and organized case file she'd ever seen. She offered me a job. Not at that company. For the internal investigations team of another logistics firm in Dallas. Better pay. Better leadership. Full benefits. And one more thing, she said they'd looked into my records. And that I should have been promoted long before any of this happened. I took the job. But here's the real twist. A few weeks into the new role, I was helping train a junior analyst. Nice guy. Nervous. Reminded me of Trey. I asked him why he left his last job. He said, I got blamed for a numbers error that wasn't mine. Some supervisor printed the wrong report and made it look like I skipped steps. I looked at the old company name on his resume. Tulsa office. And the supervisor? Mike Radley. So yeah. I may have burned bridges. I may have walked away when they tried to corner me. But I didn't walk out alone. I left the match on the floor. And when that whole house caught fire? I made damn sure everyone who lit it went down with it.